I'd like to bring to order the October 2nd, 2018 Natural Resources Board meeting. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Flag of the United States for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Okay, so we'll have the roll call, please.
Ms. Mosblick?
Here.
Ms. Olson? Here. Mr. Stadelman? Here. Mr. Van Hoffman? Here. Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the approval of the minutes. So we all received a copy of the August 7th, 2018 minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. Okay, the motion has passed. The next item on the agenda is announcements. We have open positions on the Natural Resources Board. We have a, sorry, excuse me for my voice. The term has ended for Rose Glazer. She's not here, but we'd like to thank her very much for her service. She was pretty instrumental in a lot of these Earth Day events. And so as we move forward, we'd like to be able to maybe incorporate her. She said she'd be willing to serve, but she won't be on the Natural Resources Board anymore. I'll turn it over to you, Lisa.
Well, unfortunately, Ms. Glazer has been considering resigning from the board for personal reasons for quite some time, and so she submitted her resignation letter this morning. We will miss her very much. She has offered to continue to assist with the Earth Day events in a limited capacity, and actually we're going to ask her if she wouldn't want to possibly fill one of the vacant alternate positions, but I do not know the answer to that at this time. So we will miss her very much and thank her so much for her service. Now we have an opening.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So we have an opening. We have we have one full-time position and 2 alternate positions still open. Okay. For the next item on the agenda, no public input here. Okay. Under number 7, new business. There's nothing listed there. So we're going to go to the old business. We have the community oyster garden. We've got apparently a new oyster garden intern. I'm not sure, Lisa, if you're familiar with.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Savannah came to us, Savannah Summers. She's a recent FIT marine biology graduate. She is very knowledgeable. Unfortunately, Zach, our last intern, had to go back to school. Maybe not unfortunately, but because I'm sure it's going to assist him in his future. But we were very fortunate in getting Savannah to step right in. She's working very hard and will be with us until the end of December, which is the end of the grant period.
Okay, and it looks like for the next upcoming event, we have October 4th, which is this week. This is a pretty big event. This is happening throughout the entire Indian River Lagoon, an event called A Day in the Life of the Indian River Lagoon that has been set up by See a Difference, who is led by Missy Weiss, who has come to speak with us, and she was at the last meeting. And I'm actually participating as a teacher from Vero Beach High School. My students are going to go on Thursday as well. But we have, for our oyster garden, the See a Difference is bringing, I believe, some homeschool students who are going to be looking at the oysters and analyzing and collecting data. So the event will be held at the oyster garden from 8:30 to noon. And so it looks like if there's anyone available to kind of attend or help out from the Natural Resources Board, they're being encouraged to do so.
I'll be there.
Okay, awesome.
I might be there part of the time. Yeah, I'll try. Then I would bring my husband with me for a little bit too. And we went last time with Brian, and it's kind of a little bit dirty, but not terribly. Mostly measuring and counting. And interesting. It was an interesting event. Then it was just, I don't know, 4 or 5 people at that time. But it's a good idea. It's good work. It's good times.
It's also beautiful. So Kind of reminds you a little bit about why we're trying to save it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And again, if I may, I just want to remind maybe the new members that this is a grant from the Indian River Lagoon Council right next door. And they are very supportive of this program as an environmental education program. And they've allowed us to extend this grant to the end of December. So we're very grateful.
At the time that Mr. O'Neill and I were there, they also seined a portion of the river to see what kind of critters were there. And there were, I couldn't even tell you the kinds of fish that were found. Some of them were common, and some of them were little baby things that were going to grow up and be bigger. But there was an abundance of small fish, and maybe a couple of crabs. And
Yeah, there's a lot of life down on the river still. That's surprising to me. I'm encouraged by that.
Fantastic. Okay, the next item, we have the Sustainable Business Initiative. So we've been discussing this for a couple months now. And so I had submitted an outline for the Sustainable Initiative, which was, contained with, just past the minutes in our packet. But for the sample resolution. So all I did there was to kind of put into an outline or document form some of the things that we talked about at the last meeting, the issues and the background information. Is everyone able to find it? Do you see what I'm talking about?
No, I didn't find it.
I'm sorry, was that the resolution from, the proposed resolution from Melbourne Beach?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had obtained a copy of that from Melbourne Beach, and I thought we could use that as a sample. Or if we'd like to go in our own direction, that's fine too. But I think one of the things we need to try and do, my impression from the last meeting was that we were all kind of in agreement as to trying to move forward with this. And I don't know, Jason, if you have any comments. I know you weren't here.
No, I'm ready to go for it.
Okay, so I think it would be great to try and maybe go through any edits that we might have on this, or I see there's actually this as well, the sustainable business definition. And I'm not sure what this document is.
Oh, I put that there, because
That's what
you had
okay.
asked me to do a few things.
So this is related, this is what you had taken to
Yeah.
the chamber? Okay, all right,
And then
perfect.
I also did a, you want
The
me to
survey.
talk to everybody?
Yeah, sure, yeah, you could talk
Whenever
about what you
you're ready.
collected. Yeah, no, that would be fine.
Oh, now I found it, of course. with my- It's just easier to come up here and talk. At our am I on here? At our last meeting, you had asked to find the temperature of what the businesses were thinking of as far as the Chamber of Commerce and whatever else we could find without moving too far, too fast. So what I did was I started to get to work. The first thing, let me see if I can turn this on. Turn this on. So yeah. The first thing I did was I needed some questions to ask the different businesses, so I developed just some questions that I could ask. Out of all of this, 13 questions were asked strictly to businesses. The last 3 were asked to people in random as I came across them. About 85 responses altogether. A lot of the businesses that are on the riverfront, without mentioning it, most of the larger businesses that you can think of were there. Going through the survey, some of the things were very surprising. The first question was, I asked the managers or the owners, what was the biggest challenge to your business, or what's the biggest challenge your business faces? They were basically unanimous in saying they needed more people to come into the door, as well as labor issues related to wages and then taxes. Question 2, does the business rely on the environment to be profitable? The majority of them actually said no. even the businesses on the river. So I may have had to ask that a little differently, but I just want it to be as clean as possible. Is the environment a challenge to your business? The vast majority of them said no. Does this company have a sustainable business policy? The vast majority of them said no, with some of them notable exceptions, without just naming them in a public forum. The sustainable business education arm of what we could do would be, if I had to recommend anything, the education part, to get the business owners and the people out there just to know what sustainable business means, we would go a long way. I asked them, have you heard of the term or phrase sustainable business? The vast majority of them said no. Do you know what the impact of your business has on the environment? About 50-50, yes and no. Do you know the investment it takes to be a sustainable business? Again, vast majority of them said no, but that was because the vast majority of them hadn't heard the term. Then I asked them, does your business do any of the following activities? Recycle, reuse, use renewable or alternative energy, or label products as environmentally responsible? And again, a mixed bag of yes and no, and some just get out of my store at this point. So from there, I asked them, does your company plan on being a sustainable business? And the vast majority of them said yes. Then I need to get to a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of what you were interested in. The first question I asked them, if it cost more to do business to protect the environment, but you could not pass this cost on, would or could your business still participate? Vast majority of them, of the businesses said were flatly no. If they could not pass the cost on, just it's a no-go. It's a non-starter. Then I asked them, if it costs more to do business to protect the environment, but you could not pass the cost on, but it brought in more customers, increased your volume, would or could your business participate? Now then I got a different answer. Then it was yes, because...
You mean, you got to reverse here, right? You're
yes, yeah, that's what I did. I had to ask it a different way so I could get a different response. Something more along the lines of some participation. How can I get businesses involved, or if there was any even traction there at all? So if they could bring in more people, and we could show them or educate them how running a sustainable business and community can bring more people to your business, to your community, giving you more dollar volume in your business, raising property values in our community, then we may have some traction there. Number 13, if it costs more to protect the environment and you could pass this cost on and increase your business, would your company participate? Of course, every single one of them said yes. So if they can figure out a way of making money and still do the right thing, then it's a definite go. If it's going to affect the bottom line, unless it was legislative requirement, then it would be a no-go. Basically what you had said at the very beginning. So then that was mostly with the businesses. From there, with the people that were also in these businesses, or I stopped them on the sidewalk at Riverview Park, the first thing I asked them was, have you heard of the phrase sustainable business as it relates to the environment? Vast majority of people is a big no. I would say about over 80% of everybody I've talked to doesn't relate the term sustainable business to the environment. They relate the term sustainable business to businesses that stay in business a long time. And then I asked them, would you patronize a business because it had an environmental policy over another business that did not? And this is where the answers got kind of surprising. Over 70% said, no, it would not make a difference where they went if they had an environmental policy or not. So they could get all the straws they wanted, the recycled products they wanted, have clean energy, and in this response, over 70% of the people said it would not change their decision to go to that restaurant one way or the other, or to that business, that sign company, that roofing company. That's not going to be the driving force that makes them get out of their house, get in their car, go to that restaurant, order a $50 meal, leave a nice tip, and then go home satisfied. It's not going to, right, that's correct. And then the final question was, would you pay more to patronize a business that had a sustainable business practice? Then I had to get into it a little bit. Well, the way I asked it was, if the meal cost $10 and they used plastic, whatever, and did business the same way, or the meal cost $12 and they had a complete sustainable environmental policy, would you be willing to spend the extra 20%? It was a resounding no. I mean, everybody from people really close to me who I just asked because I had to get used to it, to complete strangers that I walked up to, it was over 85% would not pay more for the environmental protections or the sustainable business policy. And the reason why I submitted it to you like this for your consideration was if we put ourselves in a position that makes some of our businesses not competitive because we put on different rules or different laws to make them raise their prices without any considerations of the people that are coming to our community or such like that, we may be helping the environment at the cost of doing business here. So there has to be a little bit of a balance.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that going on in Florida.
For a
Helping business at the cost of the environment. I think that's why we sit on this board, right?
It is, absolutely.
That's
why we're looking for that balance, and that's what I think the NRB board does. It looks for a balance between community and the environment and how we can still do both, sustain ourselves for the long term. So what I did was I put together a few things that we may be missing, but I think you'd already done it. I just hadn't seen it. What I think we needed was a definition.
I would also like to point out the American Restaurant Association disagrees with you in regards to people frequenting restaurants that are green. So there's
a restaurant that's green.
We'll look at the sample size and other things.
It's small,
Right.
and that's what it is. And a green may not be the same thing as sustainable business too, because a green business in general does things a certain way. A sustainable business will go as far as LEED certification. It goes a little bit farther than just being calling yourself a green business. And I'd have to see the exact what they're doing too. I'm just showing you what I did on the street here in Sebastian.
And I applaud your efforts. There's no question about it. Thank you very much for that.
If I could ask a clarification question. So when you were asking this question, it sounds to me like it was more just general who happened to be at an event at the Riverview Park. And we don't know where they came from, but you were talking in the terms of sustainable business at all times.
Correct.
And without, was there an explanation of what that was, or did you, or?
No.
Okay.
I just wanted to see if people knew what the term meant, and I didn't want to prep them for any of the other questions. I just wanted a clean response, and to see what they felt about sustainable business. I had to introduce myself as a member of the NRB board, go through a bunch of things.
Okay. Did you talk to any business managers or owners?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, directly, at length.
And they didn't understand the term either, really?
With the business owners, I would say 50-50 with some very notable exceptions. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what their names are in a public forum, but some of them go really far, and they push it on their menus and such to enhance the experience of people coming to their businesses and such, which on the flip side, those same people specifically also told me it has not increased their bottom line. And in some cases, because of distribution, say like having to get these products, I mean, it's a little difficult. The distribution of these products is still at a real minimal. So,
I understand. So, generally speaking, we need to look at a different term that's understandable. Florida-friendly yards is a term that people kind of get. It's friendly yards, and it's friendly to Florida climate. Maybe lagoon-friendly business would be better than sustainable business.
I would suspect you're absolutely correct in that.
Yes.
Because they just weren't, unless you were familiar with it and you were a business person, really the term just went went right over. I would think, based on what the task was, that education would be our number one goal. With, in the end, like Mr. O'Neill had said, to start with a full ban on plastics all the way across the board. If you want my personal opinion on it, to make it an even playing field, it may have to be something that extreme. But I just don't like legislation.
The example of the resolution at Melbourne Beach, it was presented as a voluntary program.
Yes.
Yeah, and I did a quick little search on the computer, which thankfully you can do quickly, that apparently similar, I'm not sure that Melbourne Beach has passed that resolution, but Satellite Beach and Indian Atlantic have. And now, there would be some modifications that would have to be made to the
Enforceability is another issue too, right? Because we have limited resources on the enforceability side. So it pretty much, we can say we're banning all plastic, and it's nice, makes it sound nice, and it would be a good thing. I would vote for it, but enforcement is another issue. But if we are able, one of the things we haven't talked about yet, we talked about in our last meeting, is going out, reaching out to Chamber of Commerce. I know you went to them, but I met with the president of the Chamber of Commerce as well at their auction. And she's completely open to having us come in and do a little dog and pony show and try to get some, momentum from the business owners, and which is really what we are trying to.
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
Vicki is the head person down at the chamber here. I've been speaking to her at length and with emails going back and forth. We just basically have to sponsor one of the events. I tried getting us in to one of the events before this meeting, but they are booked solid. We basically have to wait either. I'm going to talk to a couple of the people that are running it, because I know a lot of people here, and see if they'll squeeze me in, because this is an important thing. But they're booked out until April. So.
Or events.
Yeah, for us to get in.
I don't know, have you been in touch with Beth Mitchell? Is that who you had touched base with?
She's a taller lady.
I've only been in touch via email.
I can get her exact name from Pete, because it was at
Vicki and Beth is the one who will run the whole thing for you. That'll be your liaison.
Okay.
And
Vicki is the chief down there. I don't know what her
she
exact
was
position
totally
is.
happy with having us come in and say, look,
Actually,
we'd
her
like
emails are
to
very
submit, and
supportive.
I'd like to be able to submit them maybe another questionnaire.
Oh, wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
She actually, this is a big thing. She actually set up a survey to send out to the chamber, and I thought she had emailed you.
It did, I haven't,
What I
didn't
was
get that
going
yet.
to also refer to was this is kind of overwhelming here, and I've got like the definitions and stuff like that. But one of the things is I was having difficulty communicating with the rest of my board, because I don't want to be in violation of Sunshine State laws.
Right.
So I couldn't just pick up the phone and call Brian, hey, meet me down here, or Mr. Hoffman, or Miss Olson. So I didn't know what to do, because I'm still kind of new at the board things, and like I just now got my Robert's Rules book, so, and I'll need some guidance on how to communicate these things a little bit better, so that I'm not just out there, or if I'm getting ahead of the chairperson's wishes.
If all email goes through Kimberly, it gets to all of us, right?
Here's the shortened version of the law on the sunshine. If it is potentially something that may come back to the board for their vote, you really cannot be discussing it with other members of the board. So that is the bottom line, and there's
But email information can be disseminated.
that is
One
correct.
way.
So
One way,
one way.
not between us.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And you have
So
to be
that's why
careful
you'll
of that.
see, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
No,
I
I'm
interrupt
sorry. Let me just get through my statement on this, and then I'll turn it over. That is why my staff is instructed to blind carbon copy all of you when, like Kim will send it, you'll see from Kim to me, you're all blind carbon copied. This way you cannot reply all and inadvertently break the sunshine law of, private party or private meeting law, which is part of the law in the Sunshine. So that is why Kim does it that way. So then everything just comes back to her or I, and then that way she can reply back to you or determine if this is something that could be shared with the board either at a meeting or at large. So that's how we try to be that first guard. And I know it makes it difficult, but it is the law and we don't want to violate it. And it's all about transparency so that the public knows we are discussing everything, transparently and in front of the public to view, and no little, back alley negotiations.
And thank you for that guidance, Ms. Frazier.
On that vein, I really thank you for taking the time
Absolutely.
to do this type of activity, the survey. From that, let me recommend, if I could, that maybe you take a step back and maybe your first step is to come up with that educational program that you're looking for. It has to, whatever we do in the city, we want to make sure we're encouraging participation instead of enforcing participation. And also, please remember that anything that you are, as a board, are recommending body to the council. So everything that you put together is a recommendation that does need to be brought to the council for their approval. So perhaps this is something you want to consider. This is just my thoughts.
I think we have to formulate a little better just what it is that we want out of a business owner to do. Personally, I think we would have to ask rather than enforce, and use a soft stick. But I would agree that education comes first. And if we're not able to get to the chamber, maybe the chamber can come here. If we were to put together an invitation that said we're putting together a workshop considering doing this, come help us. But we're several steps away from having enough information about what we want to do to put together an informational forum. But bottom line for me, the direction in the resolution that was presented as a draft works as a volunteer program. Some of the language has to be changed to suit Sebastian, but it says, I think that a lot of the riverfront businesses are already doing some of the things. They're doing the easy things.
And some of the businesses are doing it better than others. I can definitely tell you that.
Some are doing it better than others. Some aren't doing it all. Some are trying hard. But I think we have to encourage those. And my long-term goal would be to have a recognition of business owners at some point, so that we can say we're going to help your business by recognize you and throw out a press release or put together an event or whatever, that this person is doing all the right things.
Maybe I could stop you there, because actually a lot of the things that you're mentioning are already in this. So if I don't know if you have that in front of you, but the outline, excuse me, if you go past the minutes from the last meeting, and then you'll see item 8, item B, discussion of outline for sustainable business initiative.
Yes, I did read through it.
And then on the back of that, so that document, really what you see there under initiative tasks. Does everyone see where I'm at?
Yes.
I think you went one page too far. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at that, under initiative tasks, essentially that's what we've got. The first bullet, the number 1, create information packet for business owners. That's our education piece right there. That's what we need to do. And that has education about what is a sustainable business program. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just encouraging businesses to participate in things that are already existing. We can come up with some kind of cost comparison, whether it's digital or on paper, where they can just put in their costs and see what it would be to go to other kind of items, the biodegradable or paper items instead of plastics. For recycling, relevant to our area, what would be the services available and how much would it cost us? And then, what kind of costs could we help with, especially if businesses are within the CRA. So that whole, you've got information there. And, for number 2, that also goes for advertisement, but also education for the consumer, which I think is one of the really important things to take away from your informal survey, is that people don't quite know or maybe don't understand. And so in that second part, notice I have under 2B, it says City of Sebastian, I have Sustainable Sebastian there in quotations in parentheses with a question mark behind it. My hesitancy to actually call that this name. And so actually I think lagoon-friendly businesses or something along that line. I mean, what do we think in terms of a name? Can we come up with
Well,
Between now
I
and the next
wanted to
meeting.
step back. We talked some at the last meeting about the litter quitter program that the Brevard Zoo puts together. And it's already, I think some businesses are already involved in that.
Can I say just 2 more things and I'll be done?
Yes.
Based on what I found. The first thing that I found was one of the obstacles that are holding up the business is a single stream recycling program. Right now, because of the way the law is written, waste management can't do commercial recycling in an easy manner like they can at home. It's you have to sign up, you have to pay fees. It's a whole different system almost. So I think I don't think there's anything we can really do about single stream service pickup for businesses like they do at the house. And then this last and final thing on the education front, I remember when the gentleman from the Audubon Society and them came in and they were talking to us about different things we could do. I think with our Sustainable Business Initiative, we need to develop a mission statement and a definition of what we are actually really talking about, because we all kind of say something different, and maybe not decide on it right now, but between now and the next meeting, start thinking about it, that we can, because we don't make the rules, we just send it up the ladder. So maybe we can develop an actual definition of what we are talking about, what we're expecting. Mine's just an idea open for interpretation and redaction. So, and then your mission statement as well as your definition would go a long way to defining what we're doing. And that's all I got to say on that. Thank you.
But you're talking about a program. You're talking about putting together a program that has step 1, step 2, step 3. I mean, as a business model. I think I'm talking more about a volunteer program and initiative. Here's our concept. Maybe a mission statement is fine. I have no problem with that. I think that we have to involve the business community in the mission statement as well as and again, I think maybe one of the first things is an outline of what we want to do, which is pretty simple, really.
Which is what I have here.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's what I really intended for us to be able to do today. Is, maybe we could just go through. I mean, I have an objective there, and so I welcome
all I have to say,
critique and criticism. Thank you very much. So I mean, the objective I have there, and so feel free to kind of provide input, and we can change this, is to incentivize city and local businesses to participate in existing sustainable business programs and adopt practices which emphasize resource conservation and reduced waste production.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all on the right track. It's just a matter of how to do it. We know what we want to do.
Okay.
I mean, I think this is extremely simplified, which is great, because I think people will adopt it quicker than if we try to convolute it with too much language and restrictions.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I mean, it really was meant to be something that is encouraging businesses rather than, I mean, really there's no city enforcement in this one. Maybe the only thing I can see is at number 3, I did add in where we talked about reflecting these practices at city-sponsored events in the park. And so I know that will be tricky, but that's ground zero right there. You are right along the lagoon. And so trying to come up with a way that we could encourage those organizations that are participating to at least cut back on those, or, well, actually, no, I don't know. Not using them, I think would be, that would be something we would have to enforce. But everything else is just setting up a program that provides education that is allowing those businesses to then come to us. Are there any comments or additions or edits, things that you would want to remove from this? I mean, this would essentially be something, and Lisa, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but say that we wanted to kind of use this document to present to the city council as kind of our action plan. This is our goal, why we think this is necessary, and the tasks that we would recommend achieving. Would you have any recommendations as to, because I've never done this before, and so this is something completely new.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Ms. Fraser, I'm wondering out loud, so we have a very good outline of where we want to go and how we want to do it. I think at some point in time, we're going to we can't move forward without some consensus from the council. And wouldn't this board have to agree that this document that the chairman has put together is a good enough outline for a member of the board to go and say, this is what we would like to do? The next step is putting together something with the business community that's informational, so that they know that we would like to move forward with this, and maybe even develop that draft resolution as part of the presentation that isn't passed yet, and just make sure, and just bring the council up to date. Is that the next step, I think?
If that is what this board feels that they're ready to do, I have shared with Kim and with Ms. Mosblack that you will have to, I would recommend that you present to the city council, yes, your outline and how you would like to move forward. If you feel that you would like to also present a draft resolution, that is certainly, your right to do so. But definitely, before you move forward with this program, you need to present something to council and get their blessing. With that being said, I would like you to remember, as you look at this outline, which is very good and it's very well presented, but try to remember that we want to limit the enforcement potential of this program, that we want to encourage utilizing existing programs. I mean, I believe you've even brought up the Surfriders Ocean-Friendly Restaurants program, possibly capitalizing on that, so we're not reinventing, and that, again, we're careful to make it a participatory program, an educational participatory program. So there's a few red flags that come up at me when I read through this, and I think Nicole already mentioned number 3. It may be worded a little too strongly. Perhaps it could just be softened up, as in, we encourage city-sponsored events to start recognizing or changing the way that they do business. Or, and also the CRA funding, we don't have any mechanism such as that in place. So again, it's just kind of rewording some of these action items, as in, these are things we would like to possibly look at, these are things that we'd like to possibly do or promote or propose. It's changing the verbiage softens it up so that you're asking for something and proposing something that, once you go down that road, such as Charles just did, a lot of people don't understand the full definition of sustainable. So what does that mean for everybody? And it could have completely different meaning for one group than another. So do we utilize a different verbiage? And maybe that's where we start. I mean, these are just suggestions, having done presentations quite a bit, but I think you're right. You're on the right track. One thing I wanted to remind this board is that for the remainder of the year, we have very limited council meetings due to elections and early voting and the holidays and all of those things. So we have council meetings October 10th. All of your documents would have to be in by tomorrow or Thursday, so I don't think we can count on that meeting. The next meeting would be November 28th, and then the last meeting of the year is December 12th. And I'm just giving you that information in case you would like to do anything before the end of the year. I would also like to encourage you to possibly, by getting something together, the Indian River Lagoon Council comes out with their annual grants, I want to say February. And so maybe that would be a potential opportunity for funding for some of these incentive programs. That's the only things I was thinking of as I was listening to all of you speak.
How much money does the CRA have available for, because I remember we talked about bottle recycling, for commercial bottle recycling down on the river, and one of the things was they had to have a separate container for glass recycling or recyclables, enclosed container. So it had to be either is this a solid enclosure? Is
There's a fence, right?
Fence
It has to be a gate
enclosure?
around
Is
it, I believe, yeah.
I mean, does it have to be cinder block? Is there code for it, or?
Yes, sir. There's code for all garbage or even recyclable containers need to be enclosed so that they're not visible
Right.
from the street. And you'll see a lot of them within wood fencing with a big,
Either
large
like the one in
gate.
front of Mulligan's, yeah.
Correct. And so the CRA does offer I believe they still have it in place. I just rewrote it. They have in place dollars allocated for those who would like assistance in enclosing their recycle
I mean, this
bins,
would be
not their
something
garbage
that we
bins,
would
but
want
their
to include,
recycle.
this offer of assistance for that, so
Just
we'd have to
education about it, yeah.
Yeah, part of the education program, so we need to find out a little bit more about exactly what the process of that would be, so it would be in our packages if we eventually come up with one.
Yeah, I think, that would kind of go under the 1D, where
Yeah,
you're, possibly providing vouchers from CRA funds, yeah.
The Chamber of Commerce requires fees to be paid to sponsor some of these events, like the breakfast or out there at Marsh Landing. I don't know if any of you guys have been to any of these. They're pretty big. I don't know the exact amount of it, though. And I didn't know if we would have to have a vote to get anything paid by the council to do these. Would we be able to do that? I mean, it's like $150 to $200 to sponsor one of these events, to get in front of everybody.
The gal I talked to didn't mention anything about that.
And actually, I didn't get to discuss that other option, or the other point
Let's go.
about Beth Mitchell. She had emailed me last week or 2 weeks ago. She wanted to bring, I had emailed her over the summer. I guess they only have board meetings every 2 months, and so she had to wait. So she had emailed me back saying that the board of the Chamber of Commerce was responded positively to this idea. And so she recommended coming up with a survey. And so I think we all, or hopefully you all received the email that had a link to it, a SurveyMonkey link. So what I did was put together a kind of a digital survey that then the Chamber of Commerce can then push out to their businesses and ask that they participate in that. And it was just to get a kind of read on what parts of the program would be most beneficial. And it basically went through these initiative tasks and said what would be helpful and what would not, and kind of gets the, gets whatever their opinion is.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at that link. I know it did come out, yeah.
And can I ask one more question to the board? Do we want to try to do something by the end of the year? Because your cutoff is the the council meeting at November 28th, which probably means we have to have our paperwork in by the 20th or that week of. So you're looking at 45 days out to come up with a resolution and be ready to present. And do we want to work on that schedule, or do we want to wait and work on a little bit slower schedule for after the new year?
And then how do we work on that without violating sunshine laws?
Can we have another meeting to work on that? Can we have another meeting?
Oh, absolutely. You know, if you are acting, let's say, as that task force, which you are, in effect, and Kim and I are your staff, if you will, I would encourage you then at this meeting to establish tasks for each individual, and then the next meeting you come back and you discuss it again, and move forward in that manner. You also have a meeting in December 12th, just to make sure that you know that. And then that will be the final meeting of the year. I do want to make the statement that we should not have a survey go live until you have the council's sanction.
Okay, so not sending it out to the Chamber of Council or Chamber of Commerce?
Maybe not at this
Okay.
point. Speaking with the chambers, of course, you know, allowable, and speaking to the public, of course, but, you know, we don't want to put out anything official until we get city council sanction.
Okay. I mean, I personally would, I would love to be able to do the October meeting. I don't think that's feasible, so I'm not going to go there. I think we should really shoot for the November 28th meeting. And maybe, you know, like Lisa said, set ourselves some goals for what we would like to do. We've got one more meeting at the beginning of November. As far as I know, there are no issues with that, with voting or anything. So we have that November meeting that we can kind of finalize everything and be ready to present then at the November 28th meeting.
Lisa, if we went through you and maybe redlined this outline, could we send it to you and you disseminate it?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the calendar, I'm not checking Facebook here. I was looking at the calendar. Yes, your next meeting would be the 6th of November.
Which is Election Day.
Oh,
Oh, bummer.
so you would not have a meeting then?
Can we meet on the 5th of November, the day before? Is it?
Or that's what I was going to suggest, if you'd like to look at an alternative date, I would have to correspond that
Can we do
coordinate
that?
that with the
Can we-
city clerk's office.
We have to have another meeting.
Yeah, I think we should.
Do you want to assign tasks to, because this is an aggressive schedule, that's why I even asked, do you want to, because you're the chairperson, I'm basically going to follow your direction on this?
I mean, yes, we can certainly do that. Let's figure out the meeting schedule. So we would have to check with the city clerk and make sure that it's available.
Yes, exactly, and I don't know that, and I'd have to make sure that there was no other competing meetings or uses for this chamber, and I can get back with you tomorrow on that.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Can I ask one more question on communications? When Madam Chairperson goes to assign tasks and we're not in council like this, would she send it to you and then you would send it out to us and then we would respond back to you? That's the way that's going to go? Yeah, okay, just
Yes.
making sure because it's just the way it is.
Well,
Okay,
Madam
now I
Chair
got
can
it.
assign the task today, and then you all just reply to Kim or I, and then, you know, we can disseminate it
Okay,
accordingly.
whatever task you decide that you need done, I'm on. It
On
doesn't
a-
matter.
On a
I'm fine with
personal
that, too.
note, I would not be available on Wednesday, November the 7th, is that correct? Or
That would be the
or
7th, after the day after the election,
the
correct?
day after the election, or the 8th, because I'm scheduled to have cataract surgery those days.
What about the end of October and a Halloween meeting?
I'll come in costume.
Well,
Early
the
Halloween.
November is the second surgery. The first surgery is November the 24th and 25th.
Well, I want to state that the last 2 weeks of
October.
October are unavailable for this chambers because of early voting. I'm almost positive.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
So it would really have to,
Do it in November, mid-November, do 2 meetings in November?
If you want to be ready for a resolution.
I will look at dates for you for that first week and the second week of November and try to get back with you tomorrow as to what some alternative dates may be.
And
Okay?
especially because we missed last month, so I feel like we're already kind of delayed.
And again, if you don't get it together not in a comfortable way before the November meeting, you still do have December. I'm just saying. I know you don't want to keep pushing it back, but it's better to get it right than to push it through.
Just one more thing. As we're moving forward, I want everybody to remember that with the plastics and everything, we're trying to get rid of all of this out of the environment. There aren't many alternatives for people with disabilities. Plastic straws are bendy, plastic spoons, plastic plates, and cups. So as we go forward, when we're looking at banning these things altogether, we have to also take into account the proper use of these things as well. And if you do an outright ban, nobody will have them.
I have a question. In terms of the redevelopment agency funding, would that go so far? I mean, like a place like the Tiki, right? They do everything is plastic, pretty much, you know. But like, would the CRA funds cover them putting in a dishwashing system? Or because really the idea here is not to recycle, it is to reuse.
Absolutely, that is part of it.
So, given that, you would think that some of those CRA funds would be available to a business like the Tiki to put in a system that would, in essence, eliminate recycling and it's still reusing,
That is up to the CRA board, but that is not a typical use of CRA funds. CRA funds are governed under Florida Statute 163, and they need to be utilized for economic redevelopment. And there's a whole list of things that it can apply for and a whole list that it cannot go for. And generally,
if there's things for growing businesses, I'm sure that would be a green growth business initiative that you
I
could sponsor.
do understand that, but generally, CRA funds are not utilized for some internal utility, if you will. It's more exterior type of funding. But again, you have the Indian River Lagoon funding that I'm not stating they would go for that, but environmental education funding they do offer. I'm just putting it out there.
Okay.
Do you happen to know if their grants are online, form to fill out?
They generally come out with an RFP, and I want to say February. I may be wrong. I'm trying to jog my memory, which is always a bad idea. I believe it's February, and then they put out an RFP of all the different grants and grant ranges and qualifiers for each of those, and then people can submit based on that. And of course, it's all based on how much dollars they've generated that year, too.
Okay, so moving forward, wanting to get this as kind of tied up as possible.
What about the name? Obviously,
The name would be something, yes.
I like Sustainable Sebastian.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was fine until I understood how it was presented to people, and people had no clue what we were talking about. And
I think educating them about the terminology is the start of it. I think once the education program runs its course, like anything else, people will learn what 2 + 2 means. And through the education process, you might be able to change views and get people up to speed on it. Because it's a relatively new thing. Nobody does it, really. We're just now talking about it. So I think it was just out of the blue. They don't know what it is. They could be educated. But I like
how about we do
Sustainable
Sebastian, a lagoon-friendly program, a bit, use both terms, lagoon-friendly business, because we are promoting businesses.
Is this the kind of stuff we would email to you and then you could email it back out to all of us? This is that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Well, no, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. So we don't have to
We're not
email.
gonna decide on it right now, are we?
Yeah.
Well, no, I
Let's
mean-
see if we can come up with something right now that we
Yeah.
can
Okay.
maybe agree on. I mean,
Yeah.
since
Start
we're
adding
here.
too much to sustainable Sebastian, lagoon friendly, I mean, then you're falling into too much of a broad category, lagoon life or whatever it may be. At least with sustainable Sebastian, I would think we get more buy-in from the council or from the board because it has Sebastian in there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess, I mean, it's hard to brainstorm names right on the spot. I mean, I get that. We've got that at least. How about one of the things that we all can try and do is just, if you think of a possible name, send it in, and we can discuss those at the next meeting.
Let's try to come up with two names each, and then we'll have a list of some 8 or 10 names, and
That's a good test.
Okay.
choose from that.
Can I just do sustainable Sebastian twice?
You can. You can.
You're hooked on that one.
If you're that ambitious, you can.
Okay. Okay, so the name would be one thing.
Okay.
In terms of, this document here, unless we want to again, kind of rewrite it, or if we think there's something we need to change, using this as kind of the outline, do we want to, like Jason said, just kind of go through and come up with maybe a few edits or kind of revisions that people might want to make?
Back on the two names, I'm sorry, I'm gonna step back. It's fairly common for businesses, and I'm not gonna be able to think of them now that I'm being asked, but we have Publix, where shopping is a pleasure comes to mind.
It's like the motto.
Yeah,
sweet.
they have, other businesses, have slogans that go with their name. And you don't say one without the other, so that's the way I'm thinking of that. Whether I'm gonna be able to think of anything wonderful, that's a whole other thing.
I do agree with Lisa was talking about number 3. I don't know if we can say policies.
Yeah, I knew that was a
Guidelines.
stretch. I knew.
Guidelines.
Suggestions,
Or I guess, so you could kind of tie in what we're doing with the first initiative. We're creating an information packet, potentially creating some kind of a information packet for vendors participating in city events to encourage the use of more sustainable or biodegradable products as opposed to plastics. Would that be more friendly?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think we can talk about CRA funds with any kind of a surety. And I don't think that, it may be that, it just worries me that you're dipping into somebody's pocket. That's a whole other board. And we're gonna need
Can
money.
we ask that board to fund this program?
No, I don't think, well, it's a whole other smoke sitting over here. It's like, so you have the city council and they have they have budgeted money for this, that, and the other. But it's like, it's, the money's in a pocket that's over here in a whole other set of clothing that you have to reach into. And it just worries me that you're being aggressive with somebody else's money. That may or may not happen. If you're assuming that that's where funding's coming from, I don't think you can assume it.
Well, certainly we
CRA
want, we
just
want,
became- was
but
just
what I'm
an
saying
issue.
is like if we can apply for funds from that source to fund this program, then we would be able to say there are funds available.
That CRA just came together, right?
No,
No, ma'am. There's,
sorry.
again, the money is tied to a Florida statute which is very strict
Right,
about
with
how
all
those
kinds of
dollars can be
restrictions on it,
submitted.
yes.
Correct, or spent, and the CRA board is the one who determines that budget. But I don't think that it is, I agree with you, Ms. Olson, that you should not possibly spell out the CRA, but perhaps you
Say
could have
blank
an
checkbook.
initiative, that you could have an initiative to seek alternative
Yeah.
There you go.
funding to
Financing,
provide initiatives, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have an ongoing program that's sustainable, at some point in time, you're going to have to be in the city's budget. But I like what you just said. That was very nice. And I already forgot what it was, but it was good. Can you say it again?
I was just suggesting, I don't want you to take words from my mouth, I'm not a part of the board here, I've just written a lot of grant docs, that perhaps it would be, one of the initiatives would be to seek alternative funding
Yeah.
for the program.
Okay, so we should put in here that Lisa said alternative funds will be available for the program.
Alternative funds will be available for the program, okay.
But you mentioned the Lagoon Council. There are other places that we haven't even thought of that provide grants for doing good things.
Would you like to set somebody up as a task to start doing that?
Well, yeah, so if anyone would be interested in trying to look at, potential funding, particularly the IRL, the Indian River Lagoon Council, or other types of kind of community funding.
I will be happy to.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
Keep Indian River beautiful.
Oh, curb, yeah,
There's,
curb.
yeah, they should be helpful. I don't know monetarily, but they'll be helpful.
And Ms. Olson, that was a very good point that you, I think, inadvertently just made, is that there's a lot of organizations out there that may not give dollars, but they would give support, materials, in-kind services, volunteers. There's many organizations such as that, and that in itself is alternative, if you will.
Yeah, I think really one of the attractive things about this is that it would be nice to be able to provide funds for, the registration fees or upfront costs. But in many of these cases, the existing programs provide discounts for the alternative options or those types of things, which make them financially attractive, even though, it is a cost in some cases. And, we do have under number 4 there, creating a kind of task force with local organizations to bring in Curb or to bring in, See a Difference, who has been here several times, to try and kind of get the education aspect to go a little bit more wider than just we might be able to handle. Okay, so I've got for 1D to change that to kind of seek alternative funding, to remove CRA funds from that language. I've got for 3, creating kind of an info packet for vendors, encouraging them to reduce their usage of single-use plastics. Is it possible to be able to provide discounts of some sort to vendors who are coming where they're paying for a booth, but they're not paying quite as much?
Yes, of course. We're in charge of it, right? Earth Day we're talking about?
No.
Well, I mean, for Earth Day or for any other, no, this I specifically said just kind of city-sponsored. I thought that,
Okay.
for other organizations, yeah.
And we don't have any event that's city-sponsored that we have different booths around. I mean, I guess Earth Day.
Other than the Earth Day.
Right, yeah. Earth Day would be really the only one, I think,
Yeah.
right, that we can really offer as a incentive to business to,
Yeah,
for PR advertising stuff, I think.
right, yeah.
'Cause that's the only one we control.
I mean, since we do control that, can we have that as a
Yes,
policy?
right? Throw it in there.
Well, but it doesn't have to go into this then. Okay, anything else on there what I'm thinking is I will update this over the weekend and I'll send it out. And then, if possible, I mean, that could be the document that everyone kind of redlines or edits so that we come in prepared for the next meeting to kind of fine tune this. I don't know. I mean, I can't think of any other specific tasks because I don't want to go too far out into the community and, before we have approval. Any other ideas for things that should get done before the next meeting?
We had talked about trying to maybe have, when we come up with a final document that you're going to be revising, which would be after the next meeting, at that point, I mean, maybe even now, we ought to consider having a workshop, and I think inviting, the businesses here, and making it it would be maybe part of our meeting, or I'm thinking more of a workshop with them to make sure that we're doing, get business ideas.
Do your due diligence.
Yeah, say, here, we're starting this process. We're going to be bringing it before the city council at some point. We want your input. I don't know that they would come here.
Well, that's what I was trying to do.
Say, yeah, it'd be great, it's probably easier to be where they are, but now you're 6 months out, you said.
Well, I'm going to try to get it, one of the people that are already sponsoring it, I'm going to go directly to them and ask them if I can shuttle in on their presentation. They
Okay.
may or may not let me, depending on how it's presented and how open-minded they are.
I'm not sure we should do that. I think that goes along the lines of the survey, where we don't want to put too much, and I definitely think a workshop is there, it needs to happen. I think that as, communicating and having, contact with the Chamber of Commerce, I cannot say it, Chamber of Commerce will be critical. But I from what I understand from Lisa, we should really get this approved, get kind of the go-ahead from the city council before we really go too far forward.
And if I may, just to piggyback on that, that's why I encourage you to have this outline be not too specific as far as, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. I think it would be a much better presentation to tell the council what you're thinking you'd like to do and why you want to do it. And yes, definitely have goals set out, but then when you meet with the chamber and or the businesses, then you really get to be more specific as to what would create that perfect balance, as you spoke of, Charles. And I think that's the way I would recommend that you go.
Okay, as we do have this draft resolution here, and it's usually the city council that looks at a resolution. And the one that we have here doesn't work. My question is, I don't know that we should present a resolution to the council. The council is usually the one that says, we're going to do this and bless your program or your thing. Am I off balance here?
It can be done either way. If you prefer to just present to the council your thoughts on Sustainable Sebastian or whatever you choose to name your program, and then ask them for a resolution, that would be fine. They may suggest that they'll do a resolution in order to show their support. It's really up to the council how they would like to proceed. But, I mean, it's not untowards to present a draft resolution if you feel comfortable doing that at this point.
And then my question, I want to step back. Are we going to use, for example, in the resolution, it talks about the Surf Rider Foundation or the Litter Quitter. Are we going to fold in with one of those programs or have a standalone program?
We were going to have them be able to opt into either one of them, was my understanding. So we're really not, it's not really our program. We're kind of funneling information and letting them make a choice.
So we're going to make available the idea that you could find out more information through this or that, Litter Quitter, Surf
Two
Rider.
programs that are turnkey and ready to be applied today, basically. That was my understanding of what we're trying to do, is kind of make it as easy as possible for the business to take a choice. So I think I'll do Litter Quitter. Right?
To make it more attractive than it already is. I mean, they have existing benefits. We are just trying to add on City of Sebastian benefits to encourage this in this area.
approve those programs as someplace to look towards, or look to.
And so speaking of that then, for the next meeting, they were not available for this meeting, but is it okay if I go to the items for our next agenda? Nothing needs to be approved, right?
Sure.
Nothing needs to be voted on. Okay, so for November 6th, knowing that we need to try and reschedule that, one of the things, so we'll try and have kind of, fine tune this document and see how we can make it a little bit more approachable and something that we're kind of suggesting, less specifics. And then I had been in touch with a woman, Sharon Connolly, from the Litter Quitter program, and she's extremely busy, but either herself or her partner from the Brevard Zoo, from Keep Brevard Beautiful, we're hoping to come to the next meeting to just, give us a little bit more details if we have any questions about Litter Quitter. Again, we're not trying to, Litter Quitter is its own thing, but it would be something that we are encouraging, so we should be as knowledgeable about it as possible. So I'll try and get them to come speak. And I've been trying to get in touch with Ocean Friendly Restaurants, and it's been very difficult. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to reach out to Surfrider and Ocean Friendly Restaurants and see. Yes.
Do you even have a,
I can do that, but I've already got the
For the other
River
thing.
Lagoon Council, so
Yeah.
if somebody wants, I'm a member of Surfrider already.
That's why I was looking at you, because I remember we were talking about that.
Do you
I'll
have-
trade with
But
you.
if you want to take Indian River Council, you take Indian.
I've actually been in one of their meetings.
Yeah,
and I met
tell
them.
Dwayne I said hello.
Okay.
Dwayne Freeze, he had that place.
So I'll do Indian River Council
And I'll
liaison with them.
reach out to
Okay.
To Surfrider.
Surfrider.
Okay. Okay.
Did you want to bring them in for informational?
If someone would like to speak, a short presentation on specifics of the program, I don't think that's a bad idea. Okay, and then it says that we have
you
as,
guys got it, that's fine.
says that we have as items for the next agenda, the rollout plan. Do we have to vote on that as an action item? Nothing to approve or vote on?
Yeah, we're not really ready to roll out.
There's
so-
nothing to really vote on, right? We would approve the document at the next meeting, okay. Okay,
If you are not ready to
And then-
vote on it, then you just pass
then
at
we
this
change
point.
it. Okay, all right, perfect.
Then, just to throw something out there before we close, but I notice a lot of cities now are going to complete renewables by 2030 and 2020, these ambitious plans, some Florida cities even. And I'm curious as to thoughts for completely sustainable energy for cities, these cities that are doing this. How is it that they're doing this? Has people read about this?
Oh, absolutely. Have you seen any of the large solar farms going in? 95 right out here, and Grant as well. It's really a matter of the CEOs and the management staffs of those businesses taking the initiative themselves. I work in Fort Lauderdale. Every day I commute down there. I deal with very large businesses on a daily basis. I work in the solar industry. I work with the building permitting from Miami-Dade up through West Palm on a daily basis. And really what I'm seeing is the initiative of the CEOs, stockholders of that company, and certain individuals who are just pushing it company per company.
Well, this is more from a city point of view, though. These are actually cities saying, look, we're going to be completely sustainable by 2025, or 2030.
You know,
And they're talking 100% renewable energy. They're talking, major green initiatives, native species. I mean, all the things we've been talking about.
yeah, we're doing it. We just don't call it 100% sustainability by 2020, but we
All
can.
right, because, I would think 2025 would be a good recommendation for us. That's it.
If I could, this is kind of falls in the good of the order or something. I happened to notice a news article that the city of Venice, which is on the west coast in Sarasota, recently passed an ordinance making it voluntary year-round, or asking their residents for a year-round fertilizer ban
Ban, yeah.
voluntarily. You know, there is
Yep.
no fertilizer
Yep.
during certain times of the year already. And the reason that it came up was because of their problem with red tide. It was one
Sure.
thing that they could do, but they did pass that, which kind of surprises me, which I would assume involves education and
Enforcement will be another issue, I'm sure, you know, for them as well. I mean, it's hard to stop somebody from driving up to Georgia and buying fertilizer and bringing it back for their lawn.
Well, there's plenty of fertilizer right here.
Yeah,
A lot of it.
but I think this is a good point, you know, it goes back to our sustainable plant initiative, you know. The more sustainable plants you have, the higher percentage that is, the lower you're gonna have fertilizer requirements. So,
Less lawns.
we are talking about this too, so.
Which makes me, the one other meeting that I've been to, it was discussing the tree and landscape ordinance, and there was I don't know how we're going to be moving forward with that, but, or when. We've got this to do now, and I think it's kind of like too many things on the table. But I don't know what the city council is expecting either, because I was again looking at the ordinance and comparing it with other things and thinking about this and that, and it needs to be changed. But I think it's, you know, with what we've got in front of us, we've got enough right now with sustainable Sebastian. And I'm beginning to warm up to this.
It's growing on you, I see.
I'm growing up.
Sustainable Sebastian.
Yeah, I do like the idea of a tagline, but I'm working on that one.
All right.
Okay, I think we've got our jobs to do.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all right, we are done.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.